Welcome to my next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to follow more amazing content. Helen, a white woman, had meticulously prepared for this trip. It was her first time flying first class, a vacation she had eagerly awaited for a long time. Helen had booked her ticket months in advance and couldn't stop imagining the luxury, comfort, and elegance that first-class accommodations promised. She wanted to take a break from her busy life and find a moment to relax and recharge. Helen chose to wear a tasteful blue dress, her hair neatly tied back, and light makeup, everything expressing her readiness for an exceptional vacation. She had spent the entire morning preparing, carefully selecting her outfit, and reminding herself that she deserved this touch of extravagance. Walking into the airport, Helen couldn't hide her excitement, thinking to herself that this was the reward she truly deserved after all her hard work. She felt as though she were stepping into a new chapter of her life, one filled with relaxation and indulgence. At the check-in counter, she was greeted politely by the staff. Helen felt that everything was unfolding just as she had hoped. The check-in agent smiled and wished her a pleasant flight, making her feel like a special guest. She quickly completed the check-in process and passed through security, where the staff was also gentle and efficient. Helen felt as though everything was going smoothly, completely immersing herself in the comfort and luxury of the first-class experience. In the first-class lounge, she was invited to enjoy a cup of premium tea along with some light snacks. Helen sipped on the hot tea, savoring its delicate aroma as she opened a book she had just bought from the airport bookstore. Her mind was at ease, fully embracing the feeling of an upcoming journey free of worries and work. Helen took a moment to glance around, noticing that everyone in the lounge was well-dressed, looking busy yet maintaining a relaxed demeanor. The quiet, elegant space made Helen feel even more assured of her choice. When it was time to board, Helen stepped into the first-class cabin, her heart brimming with excitement. A flight attendant guided her to her seat, and she couldn't help but feel delighted by the plush, oversized leather seats, personal entertainment screens, and generous space. Helen thought to herself that this was truly a special experience, a taste of luxury not everyone could afford to enjoy. However, when she reached her seat, she felt slightly taken aback and a bit displeased to find that the passenger beside her was a black man named Marcus. Helen quickly noticed a simmering annoyance rising within her as she took in Marcus's presence. He was seated calmly, a book in his hands, dressed in a smart suit that gave him an air of confidence and calm. He carried himself like a successful man, poised and well-mannered. As Helen sat down, Marcus nodded politely and offered her a small smile. Helen, however, responded with a dismissive glance, her eyes barely acknowledging him before looking away. She felt uneasy as old prejudices began to cloud her thoughts, making her mood shift further. In her mind, Helen kept wondering why she had to sit beside this man, feeling the need to somehow change the situation. She had envisioned her journey as perfect, and having to sit beside someone she didn't feel comfortable with seemed to interrupt that vision. Helen tried to ignore Marcus's presence, but each time he shifted or moved slightly, her irritation resurfaced. Everything in first class was wonderful: the spacious seats, the attentive beverage service, the quiet atmosphere. But for Helen, Marcus's presence made these comforts feel incomplete. She felt as though her sense of privacy and comfort, which she had paid for, was somehow compromised. Not long after settling in, Helen decided to call the flight attendant to request a seat change. She took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but a relentless frustration simmered inside her. When the flight attendant arrived, Helen, in a tone that barely masked her irritation, expressed her desire to move seats. She tried to maintain politeness, but her discomfort and prejudice seeped through her words. She mentioned that she didn't want to sit beside Marcus, though she didn't provide a specific reason. The flight attendant looked a bit taken aback by Helen's request. Politely, she explained that first class was fully booked, and moving seats would be challenging. The attendant spoke gently, not wanting Helen to feel offended. Yet Helen was far from satisfied. She glanced around, seemingly hoping to find support from other passengers. But everyone was busy with their own activities. Growing more frustrated, Helen insisted that the attendant find a solution. Her agitation began to attract the attention of a few nearby passengers, and the atmosphere in the cabin grew increasingly tense. Marcus, seated beside her, showed no reaction. He continued reading his book, appearing unbothered by the situation. His calm demeanor and silence only intensified Helen's discomfort and confusion. She felt as if she were being challenged, fueling her determination to pursue her request. She reminded herself that she had paid for comfort and believed she had the right to sit beside someone who made her feel at ease. Helen began to feel the pressure of other passengers' glances. Some looked at her with curiosity, others with mild disapproval. Ignoring them all, she maintained her firm stance. The flight attendant excused herself to check on the situation, leaving Helen sitting rigidly, staring straight ahead, carefully avoiding eye contact with Marcus. Meanwhile, Marcus continued reading his book calmly, unaffected by Helen's actions. His composed attitude only unsettled Helen more. She wondered how he could remain so unfazed, and this made her feel worse about her own behavior. Despite a nagging feeling of guilt, her pride wouldn't allow her to back down. The flight attendant returned with a gentle smile, though a trace of reluctance was visible. She informed Helen that all the seats in first class were indeed fully booked, and a seat change couldn't be arranged. She politely asked for Helen's understanding and hoped the rest of the flight would be pleasant. Helen, hearing this, felt a surge of disappointment and anger. She looked over at Marcus, who continued to read, unfazed, which only made her feel as though she were being challenged once more. Helen thought to herself that she had paid for comfort and should have the right to choose who sat next to her. But it seemed her expectations would not be met. Marcus maintained his calm demeanor, showing no signs of frustration despite the situation unfolding around him. He continued reading his book, occasionally glancing out the window, as if seeking a sense of peace amid the small storm Helen had stirred up. To Marcus, this wasn't the first time he'd encountered such a situation. He was familiar with the wary looks and the discomfort others sometimes showed around him. But Marcus always chose to respond with patience and composure, knowing that respect and calmness were the only ways to possibly shift others' prejudices. When the attendant returned to explain that there were no other seats available in first class, Marcus nodded gently, as if empathizing with her difficult position. He showed no resentment toward Helen's request, instead offering the flight attendant a warm smile that seemed to ease her discomfort. Watching Marcus's composed attitude only intensified Helen's unease. She couldn't understand how he could remain so calm in this situation. His unruffled manner made her feel as if she were the one causing an issue that shouldn't have existed in the first place. Helen sat back in her seat, filled with frustration and dissatisfaction. She felt as if she was forced to accept a situation she hadn't anticipated. She looked out the window, attempting to ignore Marcus's presence. But his quiet demeanor only heightened her discomfort. She couldn't stop wondering why someone like him would be sitting in first class. His presence didn't seem to fit the luxurious, exclusive image she had envisioned for this trip. As the journey wore on, Helen began to feel tired. She tried to relax, but couldn't recapture the initial excitement. Everything around her, from the plush leather seat to the personal entertainment screen, had lost its appeal. The tension in her heart made it impossible for her to enjoy the trip as she had planned. She thought back to all the hard work she had put in to reward herself with this flight, and sitting next to Marcus made her feel as if all that effort had somehow lost its worth. The flight attendant returned with a gentle smile, trying to ease the tense atmosphere. She was aware that the situation had drawn the attention of other passengers, which was far from ideal for the first-class experience they all expected. Leaning slightly towards Helen, the attendant apologized sincerely for being unable to rearrange the seating, hoping Helen would understand and empathize. Helen listened to the attendant's explanation, but she couldn't hide her dissatisfaction. Taking a deep breath, she tried to control her emotions, though her tone still betrayed her frustration. She expressed to the attendant that she felt she hadn't been respected as a first-class passenger. The attendant gently assured Helen they had done everything possible and hoped she could sense their dedication. Not wanting to make things more difficult, Helen ultimately let the conversation end. Yet disappointment lingered at her perceived loss of control over the situation. Marcus continued to sit quietly, though he sensed the tension in the exchange between Helen and the attendant. He didn't want to add to the issue and understood that, perhaps, he was the root of her discontent. However, he chose to remain silent, knowing that any reaction on his part might only worsen the situation. A short while later, the flight attendant returned, this time accompanied by the flight manager. With a professional smile, he greeted Helen politely, expressing that they wanted to do everything possible to ensure passenger comfort. Looking at Helen with genuine goodwill, he asked if there was anything he could do to improve the situation. Helen felt somewhat relieved when the manager arrived. She reiterated her request, emphasizing that she didn't want to sit next to Marcus. The manager listened patiently and then politely asked to speak privately with Marcus. Helen felt a sense of victory, as though her request was finally being taken seriously. The manager turned to Marcus, offering him a polite smile as he began speaking. He told Marcus that they were trying to ensure comfort for all passengers. Marcus looked at the manager, understanding the situation, and nodded when the manager mentioned the possibility of relocating him to another seat. But before the manager could complete his offer, Marcus gently declined. He explained that he didn't want to inconvenience anyone and that he was perfectly content with his current seat. The manager looked momentarily surprised by Marcus's response, and Helen was equally taken aback. She hadn't expected Marcus to decline the offer to move. Marcus added with a calm smile that he understood the awkwardness of the situation and didn't want to cause further trouble. His calm demeanor and self-respect left the manager feeling somewhat uncomfortable yet more respectful of Marcus. Turning back to Helen, the manager assured her they would continue doing their best to ensure a pleasant flight for all passengers. Helen sat back in her seat, feeling confused and unsure how to respond. She couldn't believe that Marcus had declined so politely. She felt as though he had somehow challenged her. But at the same time, she began to feel a slight admiration for his calm and dignified response. Marcus remained seated, his gaze returning to his book, but he could sense the subtle shift in Helen's demeanor. He understood the importance of maintaining a calm approach without escalating the situation. Marcus was well aware of the societal prejudices that existed, and he had learned to face them with respect and composure. He chose not to let Helen's discomfort affect him, understanding that people like Helen often needed time to reshape their perceptions. Meanwhile, Helen sat beside him, feeling the weight of her emotions. She didn't quite know how to respond, while Marcus seemed unaffected, continuing to read and occasionally gazing out the window. Helen found her initial irritation melting away, replaced by a heavy sense of regret about her own thoughts and actions. As she thought back to her first impression of Marcus, Helen realized how quickly she had judged him based solely on appearances, without knowing anything about his character. His calmness and the respect he maintained made her feel a pang of shame. She wondered if she should apologize to Marcus. Helen had never experienced such an intense internal struggle, caught between her pride and a growing desire to shift her thinking. Though focused on his book, Marcus could sense the quiet transformation in the atmosphere between them. He knew Helen was wrestling with her own inner conflicts, and he understood that this process was rarely easy. Changing deep-seated beliefs took time and patience. Marcus had no intention of pressuring anyone to change, but also didn't want Helen to feel cornered or embarrassed. Gently, Marcus set his book aside and turned to Helen with a soft smile. "Would you like some more water?" he asked kindly. "I can call the flight attendant for you." This simple offer was more than a polite gesture. It was an attempt to bridge the gap between them, to dispel the lingering tension. Helen was slightly taken aback, but she felt the sincerity in Marcus's voice. She nodded, a small smile breaking across her face, signaling the first step toward understanding. The flight attendant returned to check on them, attempting to ease the atmosphere further. She brought Marcus and Helen 2 glasses of juice, smiling softly and hoping that her attention might help to lighten the mood. Helen accepted her glass with a hint of awkwardness, while Marcus nodded, thanking the attendant politely. The flight attendant turned to Helen, gently reiterating that they truly wanted every passenger to feel comfortable and well cared for. The flight attendant's respectful manner toward both Marcus and Helen was evident, though it was clear she admired Marcus's polite demeanor. Helen began to feel a shift in how she viewed Marcus. She started to see that, regardless of skin color or background, Marcus had shown kindness and composure throughout this tense situation. This realization gradually eased the frustration within her. Looking over at Helen, Marcus smiled and said gently, "It's a long flight, isn't it? I think we'd both like to make the most of it comfortably." Helen sensed sincerity in his words. She realized that sometimes prejudices and negative thoughts can prevent us from seeing the kindness and decency in others. Helen returned his smile, feeling the tension within her dissipate. They began talking lightly about simple topics, like their travels, work, and life. Helen discovered that Marcus was an intelligent and well-read individual. He shared his favorite books and stories from his past travels. Marcus's subtle humor put Helen at ease, and she found herself slowly exploring a side of him she had never imagined before. Regret crept into Helen's heart over her initial attitude. She saw that her own biases had almost cost her the opportunity to meet and get to know someone as wonderful as Marcus. She felt compelled to say something to make amends. Helen looked at Marcus and said, "I'm truly sorry for what happened earlier. I judged you too quickly without knowing anything about you. You've been so kind, and I really appreciate your patience." Marcus looked at Helen, a gentle smile on his face. He nodded and replied, "It's all right, Helen. We all make mistakes from time to time. The important thing is what we learn from them. I'm glad we've had the chance to talk and get to know each other better." Helen felt a weight lift from her chest. Marcus's words were more than forgiveness. They were a valuable lesson in tolerance and mutual respect. Marcus continued sharing a bit about his work, though he didn't reveal too much about his true role. He mentioned that he worked in the aviation industry and frequently traveled for work. Helen felt curious about his profession but held back from asking too much, respecting his privacy. Nonetheless, she sensed that Marcus was someone successful and influential in his field. Their conversation continued warmly, creating a relaxed and cheerful atmosphere. Helen felt that this flight had become an experience entirely different from what she initially expected. Her preconceptions and frustration had been replaced by respect and a newfound connection with Marcus. She realized that sometimes life's most meaningful moments come from the unexpected and unplanned interactions. After the in-flight meal was served, Helen couldn't help but notice the way Marcus interacted with the flight attendants. He was incredibly polite, speaking gently and always thanking them whenever they brought anything his way. His behavior drew approving glances from other passengers around him. Helen started to feel uncomfortable about her earlier attitude. She remembered her requests to switch seats and began to think that maybe she had been too quick to judge someone based solely on appearance. As Marcus began his meal, Helen observed him savoring each bite, as though each morsel held special value. He paid no mind to the glances around him, remaining fully focused on his meal. This demeanor stirred an unexpected sense of admiration in Helen. She hadn't anticipated that someone could maintain such calm and respectful composure in an unpleasant situation. After the meal, the flight manager returned. He bowed slightly to Marcus and said, "Mr. Marcus, we sincerely thank you for your understanding and patience. It is truly an honor to have you on board this flight." The manager then revealed that Marcus was, in fact, the CEO of the airline, which left all the nearby passengers, including Helen, in utter shock. Helen couldn't believe her ears. She looked at Marcus, her expression betraying her astonishment. Marcus simply smiled gently, nodding in acknowledgement. and said that he deeply appreciated the crew's dedication and didn't want to trouble anyone. Helen felt as though she had been jolted awake. She realized she had harbored erroneous thoughts and had been too quick to judge a person based only on appearance, without truly knowing them. The manager bowed once more before leaving Marcus and Helen in meaningful silence. Marcus turned to Helen with a soft smile and resumed reading his book. Helen felt a heavy sense of shame rise within her. She knew she had been wrong and wanted to make things right. But how could she begin to mend things after displaying so much discomfort and prejudice? Helen understood that this was a valuable life lesson she needed to embrace. After a long period of contemplation, Helen decided to speak to Marcus. She felt she couldn't let the moment pass without addressing her actions. Turning to Marcus, she spoke in a gentle, sincere tone. I want to apologize. I had the wrong thoughts and acted poorly from the start. I truly regret judging you without knowing anything about you. Marcus looked at Helen, a slight smile appearing on his face. He closed his book, placed it on the small table before him, and replied, "You don't need to apologize. We all make mistakes. The important thing is that we recognize them and try to make amends. I appreciate your apology, and I understand that sometimes preconceptions are hard to avoid." Hearing Marcus's words, Helen felt a weight lift from her heart. She sensed the sincerity and compassion in him. This experience brought a profound change in how she viewed others, especially people she didn't know. Helen began to understand that prejudice and bias added nothing positive but only caused her to miss valuable opportunities to learn about the world and the people around her. Their conversation continued for the rest of the flight. They talked about life, work, and their past experiences. Marcus shared his journey of building the airline from its early challenging days, the setbacks, and the successes he had achieved. Helen admired Marcus's perseverance and talent. He wasn't just a successful person but also someone with a generous heart and great patience. Helen shared stories of her busy life, the pressures she faced, and her hopes for a relaxing vacation. She felt at ease talking to Marcus, as though they had known each other for a long time. The more they talked, the more Helen realized that Marcus wasn't just a successful CEO but also a remarkable friend. His humility and sincerity completely reshaped her first impression of him. As the plane began its descent, Helen felt that this flight had turned into a truly unique experience. It was more than a vacation. It was a precious lesson in respect and compassion. She realized that the luxury and comfort of first class weren't the most important things. It was the people and the stories she encountered along the way. Before leaving the plane, Helen turned to Marcus and said, "Thank you for everything. I hope we meet again someday." Marcus smiled and nodded. "I do too, Helen. Enjoy your vacation. And remember, life is always full of wonderful surprises." Helen stepped off the plane with a completely different mindset than when she had boarded. She felt lighthearted, and her thoughts were now filled with new, more positive perspectives on life and people. This flight had given her not just a vacation but also a shift in awareness, helping her become a better, more compassionate person. As she walked into the airport lobby, Helen glanced back and saw Marcus still on the plane, chatting with another flight attendant. She smiled to herself, feeling fortunate to have met someone like Marcus. What she had learned from this journey would stay with her for life. A reminder of the value of humility, respect, and kindness toward others. After leaving the airport, Helen felt a distinct change in her mood. She began her vacation with a fresh and more positive outlook. She arrived at the resort she had planned for, a quiet retreat by the beach with soft white sands and gentle waves. This vacation was not only a time for relaxation, but also an opportunity to reflect on the unforgettable encounter with Marcus on the flight. Helen sat on a lounge chair by the beach, gazing out toward the distant horizon. She replayed each moment of her conversation with Marcus, remembering his calm and forgiving nature. In her mind, Marcus appeared consistently serene and kind despite her initial irritation and prejudice, which left her feeling admiration. She realized that Marcus's success was not solely due to his talent but also to his character and how he treated those around him. In the days that followed, Helen spent time reconnecting with herself, engaging in physical activities like morning yoga on the beach and evening walks along the shore. She felt peace in the gentle breeze and with each step on the soft sand. Helen sensed that she had changed. She was no longer so quick to let prejudice or discomfort dictate her emotions. Instead, she tried to approach everything with a more open and compassionate outlook. One evening, while relaxing by the pool, Helen received a message from Marcus. He wished her a wonderful vacation and asked how she was doing. Smiling, Helen felt genuinely happy that Marcus still remembered her. She quickly replied, thanking him and sharing stories of the activities she had enjoyed. They began exchanging messages, sharing small stories from their lives. Before she knew it, Marcus had become a special friend to Helen, one she truly valued. Time passed swiftly, and Helen's vacation gradually drew to an end. Before returning to her usual life, Helen felt compelled to do something to express her gratitude to Marcus. She decided to write him a handwritten letter. Sitting at a small desk in her hotel room, she chose a beautiful sheet of paper and carefully penned each line. In the letter, she shared her truest feelings, expressing her heartfelt thanks to Marcus for helping her see life in a new light, for showing her the value of tolerance and kindness. Helen sent the letter to the headquarters of the airline where Marcus served as CEO. She wasn't certain whether he would receive it, but she hoped he would feel her gratitude. After sending it, Helen felt a sense of relief, knowing she had shared her feelings as sincerely as possible. A few weeks after returning to work, Helen unexpectedly received a package. Opening it, she discovered a book with a handwritten note from Marcus. He wrote, "Helen, I truly appreciate all that you shared. I hope this book brings you as much inspiration as our conversations brought to me. May you always find joy and peace." Marcus. Holding the book, Helen felt a profound joy. She realized that her connection with Marcus had gone beyond a mere encounter on a flight. It had grown into a special bond rooted in understanding, respect, and sincerity. Helen cherished each moment she had shared with Marcus and knew that this was one of the most precious gifts her journey had brought her. Since then, Helen and Marcus frequently exchanged emails and messages. They shared insights about their work, the projects they were working on, and their dreams and aspirations in life. With each conversation, Helen felt she learned something new. Marcus wasn't just a friend. He was a source of inspiration, helping her broaden her perspective and grow as a person. One day, Marcus invited Helen to attend a seminar where he would be the keynote speaker. The seminar took place at a luxurious hotel, where Marcus shared the story of building and expanding his airline. He spoke about the challenges he had faced, the obstacles that seemed insurmountable, and the lessons he had learned along the way. Helen sat in the audience, absorbing every word Marcus spoke. She felt a sense of pride, knowing she was a small part of his journey. After the seminar, they met at a small reception. Marcus introduced Helen to his friends and colleagues, not hesitating to tell them that she was a very special friend. Helen was deeply moved. She realized that her relationship with Marcus had grown beyond a mere chance encounter. They had become true companions, ready to share and support each other in life. Helen knew she had gained so much from knowing Marcus, and it had made her stronger and more confident. A while later, Helen received a job offer for a position she had long dreamed of but never thought she could achieve. It was a project management role at a large company, where she would have the chance to showcase her skills and contribute to the company's growth. Helen knew that the confidence and determination she felt now were largely thanks to the conversations and encouragement she had received from Marcus. Before starting her new job, Helen called Marcus to share the news. Marcus was delighted to hear it, offering his heartfelt congratulations. He told her he had always believed in her capabilities and that he was proud of everything she had accomplished. Confident that she would go even further, Helen approached her new role with enthusiasm and self-assurance. She applied the lessons she had learned from Marcus' patience, compassion, and a commitment to continual learning to every challenge she encountered. She knew that no matter how tough things got, She could overcome them as long as she held onto her confidence and treated those around her kindly. Marcus and Helen continued to stay in touch, supporting each other and sharing both successes and struggles. Their relationship was a testament to how a chance encounter can sometimes bring valuable friendships that help us grow and become better versions of ourselves. That vacation wasn't just a trip for relaxation. It marked a pivotal moment in Helen's life, where she found change and a genuine connection with a special friend. She knew that from now on, she would always remember Marcus as someone who helped shift her perspective and inspired her to live a more meaningful life. The new job wasn't always smooth sailing, and Helen soon encountered her first major challenges. The project management role demanded leadership skills and the ability to resolve issues quickly, while ensuring that everyone on the team was motivated and working effectively. Right from the first week, Helen found herself facing a project that had numerous setbacks. From delays in progress to conflicts within the team, Helen felt the pressure, but she remembered Marcus's advice. He had once told her that no challenge was insurmountable if one believed in oneself and treated others well. Helen decided to organize a team meeting to address the ongoing issues. She listened to everyone's opinions, acknowledged their concerns, and worked to find reasonable solutions for each problem. Gradually, Helen noticed a shift in the team's atmosphere. Everyone started to feel that their voices were heard and respected. Helen realized that as long as she remained patient and trusted her team, things would gradually improve. A week later, the project was back on track, and everyone on the team felt satisfied with their collective efforts. One evening after work, as Helen sat alone at home, she received a call from Marcus. He asked her about the new job and if she was encountering any difficulties. Helen decided to share with Marcus the challenges she faced in her first days and how she managed to overcome them. Marcus listened attentively and then praised Helen for her perseverance and problem-solving skills. Marcus also shared with Helen that he had encountered many similar challenges when he first started his career. He told her about times he had to tackle big projects without enough experience and the mistakes he made along the way. But it was those very mistakes that helped him learn and grow. Helen felt greatly encouraged by Marcus's words. She realized that even the most successful people have faced tough times, and the key is not to give up. Their conversation lasted for hours, and Helen felt as if she had been given a fresh surge of motivation to keep striving. She knew she wasn't alone, that Marcus was always there to listen and offer advice. This gave her a deep sense of reassurance and made her feel stronger. After a long period of hard work and continuous learning, Helen achieved her first successes in her new role. The project she managed was completed ahead of schedule and delivered results that exceeded expectations. The company was very pleased with her and her team's efforts. Helen received praise from colleagues and superiors alike, filling her with immense pride. Helen called Marcus to share the news. Hearing this, Marcus couldn't hide his joy and pride for Helen. He congratulated her and reminded her that he had always believed she could achieve this. Marcus also gently reminded Helen that this was just the beginning and that she had many more opportunities to grow in the future. Helen felt as though she were living in a dream. She thought back to the early days filled with worry and pressure, and, comparing it with the present, she realized how far she had come. She had grown stronger, more confident, and more capable as a leader, all thanks to Marcus's encouragement and the valuable lessons he shared. The relationship between Helen and Marcus had grown even more special. They were not just friends, but also companions in each other's journeys of personal development. Helen knew there would be more challenges ahead, but with Marcus's support and encouragement, she believed she could face anything. That fateful vacation had changed Helen's life forever. It hadn't just brought her a special friend. It also helped her discover inner confidence and strength to face life's challenges. Helen knew she would always treasure these memories and continue living with a positive outlook and deep gratitude. As time passed, Helen steadily proved herself in her new job. The projects she undertook grew increasingly complex, demanding comprehensive management skills. One day, she received an invitation from the company's leadership to take part in a particularly important project, an opportunity Helen knew could be a turning point in her career. This was an international project requiring collaboration with foreign partners, and Helen would be responsible for leading the team within the company. Helen recognized that this was not only an opportunity for growth but also a significant challenge. She needed to learn more about her partner's work cultures and familiarize herself with new standards and processes. In the first few days, Helen felt overwhelmed by the workload and the stringent requirements from the partners. But she wasn't discouraged. She remembered Marcus's words of encouragement that challenges are, in fact, opportunities to learn and grow. Helen reached out to Marcus for advice. Marcus was thrilled to hear about her new opportunity. He encouraged Helen to believe in her abilities and reminded her that facing challenges would only help her grow. Marcus also shared his experiences working with international partners, including important considerations and strategies for building trust in collaborative relationships. With Marcus's advice in mind, Helen thoroughly prepared for her first meeting with the foreign partners. She studied their culture and work style carefully, meticulously planned her approach, and prepared her presentation. The meeting went better than she had expected, and Helen left a strong impression on the partners with her professionalism and quick problem-solving abilities. This not only strengthened the leadership's confidence in her, but also opened up additional promising opportunities in her career. After the success of the international project, Helen felt more confident than ever. She had achieved things she once never thought possible. Her career began to soar, and she became one of the company's outstanding managers. Her efforts and dedication were recognized, earning her respect from both her colleagues and leadership. During a video call with Marcus, Helen shared her recent achievements and expressed her deep gratitude to him. Marcus smiled, his eyes full of pride. He told Helen that he had always believed in her abilities and that her accomplishments were the result of her hard work and perseverance. Marcus also shared his latest projects and the larger goals he aspired to achieve. Helen felt inspired by Marcus's unending passion and commitment to growth. His constant search for ways to contribute and develop made her appreciate and admire him even more. One day, Marcus invited Helen to participate in a charity program organized by his airline to support underprivileged communities. Helen eagerly accepted, seeing it as a wonderful opportunity to work alongside Marcus and to reunite in person after a long time of staying connected through calls and messages. The charity event took place in a rural area where living conditions were tough. Alongside Marcus and other volunteers, Helen brought essentials and organized activities to support children and struggling families. She saw a different side of Marcus. He was not only a strong leader but also a compassionate person. He took time to speak with locals, listen to their stories, and find practical ways to assist. Helen felt incredibly fortunate to be part of such meaningful work with Marcus. Her time spent in the rural village left her with beautiful memories. She realized that true success is not just in personal achievements but also in the value we bring to the community and those around us. After the event concluded, Helen and Marcus took a quiet walk around the resting area. They shared their aspirations for the future. Marcus spoke of his dream to establish a scholarship fund to support underprivileged children, while Helen shared her wish to create a community project within her company. They both felt a profound and strong connection, deeper than ever before. Helen knew that meeting Marcus had not only changed her life but had also helped her to reevaluate the true values of life: sharing, compassion, and service to the community. She understood that success and prestige only truly matter when used to bring goodness to others. Thanks to Marcus, she had learned this invaluable lesson, one she would carry with her for the rest of her life. After the charity program, Helen felt energized and determined. Back at her company, she immediately began working on the community project she had shared with Marcus. She started by creating a detailed plan to launch initiatives that would support the local community through the company's resources. Helen wanted to encourage her colleagues to join in, believing they could all contribute to making their shared environment a better place. Helen organized a presentation for the company's leadership, where she clearly outlined the importance of giving back to society, not only for the community's benefit but also to enhance the company's reputation and values. The leadership team was impressed by Helen's passion and agreed to support the project. Helen quickly assembled a team of volunteers from various departments, and together, they launched activities such as educational counseling sessions for children, book donations, and free community classes. These activities received enthusiastic support from both employees and the local community. Helen felt proud that her project brought tangible benefits to those in need and created opportunities for her and her colleagues to bond and better understand each other. While Helen was carrying out her community project, Marcus was equally committed to pushing forward with his plan to establish a scholarship fund. One evening, during a video call with Helen, Marcus shared the progress of his project. He had faced numerous challenges in securing funding and convincing organizations to partner with him. Yet he remained determined to see it through. Hearing the steadfastness in his voice, Helen knew that Marcus was never one to give up easily. Helen offered to help by connecting Marcus with her network. She knew a few entrepreneurs and organizations who were always willing to support educational and social development initiatives. Marcus deeply appreciated Helen's offer, and he immediately began working with the contacts she had introduced him to. After some time, with Helen's support and Marcus's unwavering efforts, the scholarship fund was officially launched. Named Trust in the Future, the scholarship aimed to cover tuition fees for children in difficult circumstances, providing them with the opportunity to pursue an education. Helen felt immensely happy to witness Marcus achieve his dream. She knew this was the clearest testament to Marcus's perseverance and compassionate heart. The Trust in the Future Scholarship Fund quickly became a symbol of hope for many struggling families. Marcus and Helen regularly organized scholarship award ceremonies and met with students. Each time Helen saw the joy and excitement on the children's faces, she felt the true value of what they were doing. She realized that every effort and hardship they had endured was worth it. At one scholarship award ceremony at a small school, Marcus stood on stage, sharing his journey with the students. He spoke about the challenges he had faced and how he had overcome them. His goal was to inspire the students, encouraging them to believe that no matter where they come from, with dreams and determination, they could achieve anything they desired. Helen sat in the audience, listening to every word Marcus said. She felt his deep sincerity and genuine passion. Marcus's words not only inspired the students but also filled Helen with pride and emotion. After the ceremony, Marcus and Helen strolled through the schoolyard, discussing their upcoming plans. Marcus then proposed something unexpected. He wanted Helen to become the co-director of the scholarship fund, as he knew no one could help him fulfill this mission better than she could. Helen was surprised by the offer but also felt deeply honored. She accepted, knowing that this was the best way to continue contributing to society and standing by her remarkable friend. Becoming the co-director of the Trust in the Future Scholarship Fund brought Helen immense joy, but it also presented significant challenges. She had to learn much about financial management, fundraising, and building relationships with nonprofit organizations. Helen was undeterred. With Marcus's guidance and the valuable experience she had gained in her previous roles, she began to adapt and excel in her position. Helen and Marcus decided to expand the scope of the scholarship fund by partnering with more educational organizations. They wanted to ensure that the fund not only covered tuition but also provided supplemental education programs to help students develop comprehensively. They organized workshops, soft skills classes, and even invited renowned speakers to share their experiences and knowledge with the students. However, expanding the scholarship fund was not simple. They faced numerous challenges, from securing additional funding to navigating complex legal procedures. At times, Helen felt overwhelmed and exhausted, but Marcus's encouragement kept her strong. He reminded her that their efforts were for the future of countless children and that every small step forward brought hope to many. After months of relentless effort, the Trust in the Future Scholarship Fund achieved remarkable success. They had partnered with over 10 schools nationwide, supporting hundreds of students in their journey toward education. Helen and Marcus couldn't hide their happiness, seeing these children receiving a better education and feeling hopeful about their futures. One evening, after concluding a scholarship award ceremony, Marcus and Helen sat on the beach, looking out at the calm night sea. Marcus said to Helen, "We've come a long way, and I know this is just the beginning. There's still so much more we can do for these kids, and I'm so grateful to have you by my side." Helen smiled, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. She felt that everything she had experienced, from the struggles in her career to the biases she once held, had helped her grow into the person she was today. She knew that meeting Marcus had changed her life in ways she could have never imagined. "I feel the same way, Marcus. I'm so grateful we met, and I truly believe that, with love and passion, we can accomplish so much more for these children." They sat there together, looking out toward the horizon where their dreams and hopes were directed. Helen realized this wasn't just a story about a chance encounter on a flight. It was a story of friendship, compassion, and unwavering dedication to a brighter future. Both Marcus and Helen knew that this journey would bring many more challenges, but they were undeterred. They had each other, and they believed that, with faith and determination, every dream could become reality. The stars above seemed to shine down, lighting the path ahead, guiding them toward even greater things to come.